What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the show. Happy Thursday. We are into week 2 of the fantasy football season, and I am here to give you all my wide receiver rankings for the week. And while I do my wide receiver rankings, I'm going to be answering all fantasy football questions. And so go ahead and ask away, but I'm going to get started with my wide receiver rankings. This is going to be my first time doing my rankings during a live stream. And so it's certainly going to be different, but I'm going to enjoy it different. I'm going to see how it works out. And here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my wide receiver rankings for the week, starting with my top 25, starting with tonight's game, and my number one player, Tyreek Hill. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be typing out the player and the team right here so you know who I'm talking about. So my number one wide receiver on the week is Tyreek Hill at Buffalo. I mean, with Tyreek Hill, we obviously get a guy who saw 12 targets last week. He's coming off back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons. I love this guy to explode in this offense. I think that this is a guy who's going to give you some of the best big playability at the wide receiver position in the entire NFL. We know that the Buffalo defense isn't quite what it used to be. To me, Tyreek Hill is the easy number one going into this week. My number two is going to be Cooper Kupp versus Arizona. So Cooper Kupp versus Arizona. Look, this dude had 21 targets last week. That's absolutely amazing. This is a guy who's going to come out and give you consistent target share every week. And not only consistent target share, but pretty much the highest ceiling as far as target share at the wide receiver position in fantasy. This is a dude who literally has the possibility every week to get somewhere realistically between 16 and 20 targets in this offense. So I like Cooper Kupp as my number two on the week. Going up against Arizona, a very soft defense. I like Cooper Kupp to continue his dominance and be one of the biggest difference-making wide receivers, one of the biggest difference-making players in all of fantasy. My number three on the week is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. So Amon-Ra going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay obviously is a team that could be involved in some shootouts this season. Amon-Ra St. Brown going up against Tampa Bay is a good matchup. They don't really have any answers for him in their secondary. Look for him to have a massive bounce-back game. This is still going to be one of the biggest target hogs in all of fantasy football. I see some more people rolling in, by the way. Don't be afraid to ask your fantasy football questions. I'll be taking a break from my rankings whenever I have questions that I need to answer. So I'm going to be not necessarily answering every single question that's asked, but I'm going to do my best to answer questions along with doing these rankings. So go ahead and ask away your week 2 start sit questions, everything like that. Amon-Ra is my number 3 for the week. My number 4 is going to be CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb up against New Orleans. New Orleans just played in a super high-scoring game, guys. They obviously just scored a ton of points. This game has some serious shootout potential. I think that it also could be one of the I got a question from AM427. Benching Achane for the week for Montgomery or sticking through if he plays? If Achane plays, we are playing Devon Achane. I just think that, I don't know, man, like he just has too much upside, right? With the 7 targets out of the backfield last week, I don't really think that he's benchable considering the target share upside out of the backfield. And we also have to consider the fact that, you know, Buffalo's defense isn't quite what it used to be, and this game has some serious shootout potential. So based on the game script, I think that if Devon Achane plays, you absolutely have to play him. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about Mostert cutting into his workload as much. So I think he's actually a must-start player if he's on the field. My number 5 player is going to be Ja'Marr Chase at playing Cincinnati. I just think that Ja'Marr Chase is still going to be a bounce-back candidate for me. I mean, this is a guy who's one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. He gives you the highest weekly ceiling at the position besides Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill. This is a did I just say Ja'Marr Chase at Cincinnati? Sorry about that. Ja'Marr Chase. Everybody remind me, who are the Bengals playing this week? I'm drawing a blank on this. I had him at 5 in my rankings. We're going to go on to 6. Justin Jefferson. JJ is going to be my number 6 on the week, playing up against San Francisco. This is a game that definitely, I mean, it's got some shootout potential. Justin Jefferson's going to be one of the main target hogs in all of fantasy this year. Sam Darnold certainly looked good in week one. Obviously, they're going against a very tough defense. But what happens when you have to get rid of the ball and, the pass rush is coming and the other team is bringing the house? You've got to throw the ball to your best receiver. The only answer for San Francisco is not going to be their run game this week because we just saw Breece Hall not be able to run on him. Nobody's going to be able to run on San Francisco. They're going to have to run those short 7-yard slants to Justin Jefferson that he likes running over the middle of the field, get rid of the ball quickly. So I think that JJ is going to eat from a target share perspective in this game. Look for him to have 12-plus targets in this game. I like Justin Jefferson to explode this week. Number 7 on my list is going to be A.J. Brown. And for those of y'all that are watching, don't be afraid to ask me your fantasy football questions. I will do my best to get around to all questions from doing my rankings whenever you ask something. If you have a lineup question, and I'll make sure to get around to you. So I have A.J. Brown going up against Atlanta. So A.J. Brown up against Atlanta. I like this matchup this week for A.J. Brown. I mean, this is a guy who's mostly matchup proof. I mean, we saw that last week with Jaire Alexander. You can't let any shutdown corners really scare you away from playing this guy. This is a guy who you need to be playing every single week, regardless of the matchup. I traded my only viable wide receiver 2, Josh Jacobs, for Jaden Reed and Travis Kelce. My only viable running back 2. Feel like the move was a W, but I'm left with only Breece and Javonte as running backs. While I can make a trade, do you see it as a W? To be honest, no, I don't. And it's not necessarily because this is a bad trade from a roster construction standpoint. It's mainly because of the fact that, I'm so big on Josh Jacobs this season, and I think that while Jordan Love is out, they're going to lean on him more. I think even when Jordan Love comes back, he's going to be the most valuable asset in the offense. And I think that Travis Kelce is just extremely old, and he's not going to be quite the player he used to be. With that being said, Travis Kelce is still probably going to be tight end 5 this year, maybe tight end 6, something like that. I just don't think he holds the same upside as he used to. And I think that Josh Jacobs is exponentially more valuable than Jaden Reed. So I don't like that move, but it is very close. It's not like it's a terrible move. It could end up working out for you. At the end of the day, you definitely added some depth. Achan is officially active. No questions for me. Just dropping a like and saying hi. Thank you, Joe Kingsley. Appreciate you coming into the live stream. Jalen Hurts, Mostert, McLaurin, Joe Burrow, Josh Jacobs, Xavier Worthy. Who wins 12-man PPR? Guy in my league traded me JT for Achan. That is a huge win in my opinion, sir. I think that Achan's going to be the guy who has the better season. Reaper, I'm not 100% sure what you're asking me. Jalen Hurts, Mostert, McLaurin, Joe Burrow, Josh Jacobs, Xavier Worthy. Who wins 12-man PPR? I don't know. I don't understand the question. You're asking me who wins, Jalen? Mostert. Okay, I'm going to go on to number 8 in my rankings here. And my number 8 for the week is Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson is playing up against Tennessee. And I don't know. I just think this is a matchup where I'm not really scared of Tennessee's defense. The connection between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson still looked very good. Aaron Rodgers still has all the arm talent in the world. If you watch this last game, it was not on Aaron Rodgers. He was facing up against a very tough defense, and his connection with Garrett Wilson was still very, very good. It's just that for whatever reason, he didn't target him for the majority of the third quarter, and I have no idea why. They probably would have stayed in the game if they did that. Either way, Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson have a very good connection, and I love Garrett Wilson to have a big bounce back week against Tennessee. Number 9 on my list is going to be Mike Evans. Mike Evans. I mean, this is a guy who has absolutely dominated for 10 straight seasons. This dude has been as good as it gets for the longest time, and he's never had less than a 1,000 receiving yard season. Facing up against Detroit, this could be one of the biggest shootout games on the slate. I like Mike Evans as an awesome bring back for this game, and so we are going to be starting him with confidence this week. Detroit also has holes in their secondary while they have a very good run defense. I think Rachaad White in the run game gets shut down in this game, and I think that Mike Evans absolutely goes off. So I have Mike Evans here at my number 9. Ford or Kamara in the flex? Definitely Kamara 100%. Hold or sell Kincaid? I wouldn't sell Kincaid right now, bro. You can't really get anything for Dalton Kincaid right now because people are so down on him after just 1 week. So I really only like selling high on players. I don't want to sell low on a guy like Dalton Kincaid right now when his perceived value isn't even as much as his actual value. So I don't think he's a good I don't think he's a good sell high right now. My number 10 receiver is going to be, hold on, Reaper. I'll get back to your question here in a second. My number 10 receiver is Debo. Debo going up against Minnesota. I don't know. I like this matchup. Minnesota doesn't really have anybody in their secondary that I think is a problem for Debo. Obviously, he's still going to be heavily involved in the run game as long as Christian McCaffrey is not on the field. This is a guy who has electric talent, and we know that, he can make a difference in every way, shape, and form in the game. He can line up in the slot. He can line up outside. He can line up in the backfield. He is the number one wide receiver on San Francisco's offense, probably from a target share perspective, certainly from a talent perspective, and I like him to have a big game against Minnesota. All of these top 10 guys are smash plays this week. Number 11 on my list is going to be Chris Godwin. Mike Evans' teammate. Chris Godwin up against Minnesota. 12-team PPR, Hurts, Achane, Pacheco, Jettas, Rasheed, Parkinson, DJ Moore, bench, Ford, Moss. 12-team PPR. Hurts, Achane, Pacheco, Jettas, Rasheed, Parkinson, DJ Moore, bench, Ford, Moss, Monty, Reed. What kind of moves should I look for? Well, you're set at quarterback. I personally think you need a running back that's going to give you 20-plus carries a week somewhere in there, but you do have a good running back combination. Jettas, Rasheed, Parkinson, DJ Moore. At the end of the day, I think that your wide receiver needs to be the main position that you upgrade. So what I would do is I would maybe trade some of that depth off your bench because you do have a very deep bench for a wide receiver that's going to get 7 or 8 targets a game. I don't know off the top of my head which receiver you're going to target, but look for a wide receiver that is going to get 7 or 8 targets a game. Trade some of the depth off your bench. And if you have to trade someone off your starting roster, trade DJ Moore. This dude isn't all that valuable. I don't like him being in a crowded wide receiver room. I think you could trade DJ Moore for a more viable wide receiver option. Stevenson or Rachaad White? Pick one. Ramondre. Rachaad White is going to get absolutely shut down this week, going up against a tough run defense. I don't like Rachaad White this week, so go ahead and play Ramondre Stevenson. My number 12 for the week is Marvin Harrison Jr. MHJ. So Marvin Harrison Jr. up against the LA Rams. Obviously, this game has some serious shootout potential. I look for Marvin Harrison to bounce back in a massive way, guys. Keep in mind that Justin Jefferson didn't absolutely go off in his very first game in the NFL, right? It takes time for these guys to get going, especially these rookies. It's his first freaking game. To panic about a player who is that good and has that good of a prospect profile and that much draft capital, to panic over one game is ridiculous, okay? So I wouldn't do it. Don't panic. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be fine playing in a shootout game against a secondary that can be exploited in the LA Rams. Look for Marvin Harrison Jr. to have an awesome bounce-back game in week 2. Do you believe in Demarcus Robinson from the Rams? Yes, I do believe in Demarcus Robinson. I mean, obviously, Cooper Kupp's been going to be a target hog, but I've been telling people to draft Demarcus Robinson like pretty much all offseason. I mean, I've been wanting people to draft Demarcus Robinson, and now with Puka Nacua out, he becomes even more valuable. Number 13 on my list is Nico Collins against Chicago. I don't know. I like Nico Collins. I was saying going into the year that Nico Collins is going to be a guy that just is a split target share between the 3 players in his offense, between him, Diggs, and Tank Dell. But obviously, this is Nico Collins' offense, at least to a degree for now, right alongside Tank Dell. I'd say if you're ranking the wide receivers in order of importance in the offense, you have Nico Collins, then you have Tank Dell, then you have Stephon Diggs. Obviously, Stephon Diggs got in the end zone with his 2 touchdowns, but when you look at it from an air yardage perspective, Nico Collins and Tank Dell absolutely dominated. So I like Nico as the top wide receiver in this offense, at least for now. Tua or Purdy. That's tough. I mean, obviously, you've got 2 quarterbacks that are in 2 of the top offenses in the NFL. And Miami this week up against Buffalo in a shootout game. I think I'm taking Tua Tagovailoa over Purdy this week. Jalen Hurts, Mostert, McLaurin for – okay, sorry, Reaper. I didn't get back to you earlier. Jalen Hurts, Mostert, McLaurin for Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts, Mostert, McLaurin. Jalen Hurts, Mostert, McLaurin for Joe Burrow, Josh Jacobs, Xavier Worthy. That is extremely close. I think the Joe Burrow side of the trade wins this here. Joe Burrow, Josh Jacobs, and Xavier Worthy, I would rather have over Jalen Hurts, Mostert, and McLaurin, but it is very close. So this is almost a toss-up, but I'm 60% on the Joe Burrow side of the trade. Tank Dell or Calvin Ridley? Tank Dell for sure. How do you feel about Wright from Miami? I love Wright from Miami as, I was looking to see if Devon Achane wasn't going to play tonight. Joe Kingsley dropped in and let us know, hey, Devon Achane is on the field tonight. I still like Jalen Wright. This is a very fast, very talented, explosive back in a backfield where speed operates very well. We saw this 1-2 punch with Mostert and Achane last year. This could very well be the Devon Achane and Jalen Wright show this year if Raheem Mostert is not able to stay on the field. That we all know that that's a distinct possibility. I like Wright in tonight's game, and I like him rest of the season as long as Mostert is out of the lineup. Now, I know, Kels. I know. I mean, I just can't deny the fact that Nico looked like the wide receiver one in the offense in week one, and typically – I think they're going to be going to him more so than anybody. I still love Tank Dell. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be more top-heavy with Nico and Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs being the clear number 3. I know a lot of people weren't thinking that going into the season, but I very much think that's going to be the case. Pluff, start to Olave, Neighbors, Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr. I think Olave's in for a bounce-back game, so we're going to be starting Chris Olave, and Malik Neighbors has a more healthy and secure target share right now than Xavier Worthy. But Xavier Worthy's playing in what could be a shootout game against Cincinnati, and he has Pat Mahomes throwing the ball. So, and I'm not playing Brian Thomas Jr. I'm going to go with Olave and Xavier Worthy. So, going on with my wide receiver rankings at 14, I have somebody playing tonight, Jalen Waddle. And I had Jalen Waddle going up against Buffalo. Yeah, I mean, I just think – so my team rating you gave me earlier should go from a 7. Yeah, I mean, honestly, and is that the same team where you have Jameson Williams as well? I'm pretty sure that's the same team where you have Jameson Williams as well. So with 2 players that I was slightly underrating going into the season, I probably would have to bump you an entire point. Jalen Waddle against Buffalo. And then my next, just slightly behind Nico Collins, is Tank Dell up against Chicago. Yeah, I mean, I like Tank Dell going up against the Chicago Bears. I mean, this is a guy who is, like I said, right up there with Nico in his offense. I think Nico's the wide receiver 1, but Tank Dell is still close. And it's a good matchup against Chicago. My number 16 on the week is going to be Davante Adams. Davante Adams up against Baltimore. Now, this is where I have kind of a tier break from my – you have your top of the top wide receivers and then, kind of your tier 2 wide receivers. And I kind of have another tier break now down to Davante Adams against Baltimore. This is a tough matchup, but I'm still starting Davante Adams based on the talent. This is one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. If you were just talking about a talent perspective, he's up there at the very top. This is a dude who's in a bad offense, though, facing a tough matchup. So I have him a little bit lower than I would normally have him at 16 overall. 17 overall, I'm going to have Chris Olave. Chris Olave is going up against the Dallas Cowboys. This is obviously a very tough defense. I spelled Olave wrong. Sorry about that, guys. But Chris Olave, I still think is going to have a bounce-back game. I mean, this offense actually looked really good in week 1. Maybe they can actually put up some points on the Dallas Cowboys. I doubt it. But if they were to come out and score 27 points or something like that, maybe 21 points, I wouldn't be all that surprised. I could at least get into the 20s. And Chris Olave is due for a bounce-back game. The fact that he didn't see a whole lot of targets last game is a bad sign, but there's no way that his target share doesn't regress in the positive direction, at least a little bit. Tank Dell or Chris Olave for season. Tank Dell by a mile. Let's see here. My number 18 is going to be Drake London against Philly. Yeah, Drake London against Philly. I mean, obviously, I don't trust Drake London that much right now. I mean, he was drafted in the second round. I was telling people all offseason that this dude was being overvalued and overhyped. I mean, like, the dude he's overvalued. I mean, he's playing up against the Philadelphia Eagles, a tough defense. I do not like this matchup whatsoever. And so I am not necessarily sitting Drake London, but to me, he's more of a flex consideration this week. And my number 19 is going to be Brandon Aiyuk against Minnesota. Now, y'all might notice that I have Brandon Aiyuk a lot lower than I have Deebo Samuel. That's very much because I believe that there's a bigger talent discrepancy than people think. Obviously, Deebo is going to be utilized a lot more in this offense as long as Christian McCaffrey's out because of how much they're using him in the running game. This is a dude who, Brandon Aiyuk, who is a talented wide receiver in his own right, draws an okay matchup against Minnesota, but I'm not too big on him this week. He looked terrible in week one. The dude's been out of camp. Him and Brock Purdy aren't really connecting yet because he hasn't been on the practice field. And when that happens, you come in a little bit rusty. It happened with Jamar Chase. It happened with Brandon Aiyuk. It happens with all kinds of players that hold out. We see this all the time. He's going to need some time to get going, and I am not too excited about starting him in week 2. He is good enough to be in my top 20, though. Next on my list is going to be Amari Cooper, and I'm almost done with this rankings, guys. And when I'm done with these rankings, I will just be focusing on answering questions, going into the night's game, getting you prepped for tonight's game. Amari Cooper, Jacksonville. Amari Cooper up against Jacksonville. This is a much better matchup than Dallas. Obviously, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have a secondary that's exploitable. You don't have nearly as good of a pass rush as you did with the Dallas Cowboys. Trevor Lawrence should actually Deshaun Watson should actually have some time to pass in this game. Obviously, last game, he looked terrible even when he did have time to pass, but with some actual pass protection and going up against a softer defense, look for Amari Cooper to have a bounce-back week. He did see 9 targets last week. So with that being said, I think Amari Cooper sees a bounce-back week against Jacksonville. Number 21 on my list is going to be George Pickens against Denver. George Pickens against Denver. I mean, obviously with Denver, you have Patrick Surtain, who's going to be covering George Pickens. He's probably going to be shadowing George Pickens. He's probably going to be all over him all game and going wherever he goes. With that being said, I think that George Pickens is a matchup-proof talent. I really do. Now, obviously, as long as Justin Fields is a starter, he's going to need to create a little more yards of separation between him and Patrick Surtain to catch balls than he would with most quarterbacks because Justin Fields' arm accuracy isn't all that good. That's the only reason I don't have George Pickens higher. I think that he's going to explode this year. I just don't necessarily like the fact that Patrick Surtain is going to be all over him in this game. So I have him at 21. My 22 is Devontae Smith. Now, this is obviously way lower than a lot of people are on Devontae Smith this week, but I don't know, man. I'm just not as big on Devontae Smith as everybody else is. I have him as my number 22 against Atlanta. My number 23 is going to be Malik Neighbors, and Malik Neighbors is facing up against the Washington Redskins. Just kidding, the Washington Commanders. I still call them the Redskins because I grew up a Cowboys fan. I'm still a Cowboys fan. I always enjoyed the Cowboys-Redskins rivalry, so I'm going to keep referring to them as the Redskins. I don't care. Malik Neighbors up against the Washington Redskins. He should have a pretty good game. I mean, he had, 6 targets in week 1. The target share was certainly there. Had 60-plus receiving yards. This is a dude who's an incredibly explosive talent. He's really the only talent in his offense, so they're going to be looking his way often. So based on raw target volume alone, this guy is a top 24 play. And the last player that I have in my top 24 is Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman Jr. up against the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, this game isn't going to be nearly as high scoring as it would have been with Jordan Love, but I mean, I don't know. I think that Michael Pittman Jr. is good enough to crack my top 24. All right, guys, those are my top 24 wide receiver rankings for the week. If you just now tuned into the video and you weren't able to catch the rankings, just scroll up to the top of the chat. I listed every player in my top 24 and their matchup in order from 1 to 24 in the chat. And yeah, I absolutely, man. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you tuning in. And whatever fantasy football questions you have regarding week 2, just go ahead and ask me specifically questions for tonight's game mainly, but any week 2 questions. First of all, Tank Bigsby or Austin Eckler for the season. I'm I'm going to still go with Austin Ekeler. I mean, I don't want to get too excited about Tank Bigsby getting 12 carries and an equal opportunity share to Travis Etienne in week 1. I mean, could it continue to be that way? It certainly could. But with Austin Ekeler, we just have so much larger of a sample size of success. And I still think that he's going to get a healthy opportunity share in his backfield. And he's in what I think could be a sleeper offense. I think that the Washington offense is going to be better than people expect. So I actually like Austin Ekeler over Tank Bigsby. Yep. For anybody that's just tuning in, scroll to the top. You can see my wide receiver rankings 1 through 24, the matchups, and who I have. Yes, Frizzall, I got you. Ask away as many fantasy football questions as you want to ask. I will continue to answer questions in the chat. I'm going to be live streaming, not all the way up to game time, but at least getting y'all close to kickoff. So, yes, sirs. Ask away as many questions as you want. I'm trying to pick up Tank Dell from one of my league mates, and I managed to steal Tank Bigsby and Demarcus Robinson from him off waivers. Yeah, I mean, like, what I would advise is you grab Tank Dell before he has that first explosion game, because the minute that people realize that he can function in this three-headed monster at wide receiver, he's going to become unsellable, and he's going to have that big ceiling game sooner or later, whether it be this week, next week, or the next week. He's going to have that big explosion game, and then people are going to realize, hey, he does still have a high ceiling even with Stephon Diggs. I'm going to keep him. So I would go ahead and trade for Tank Dell as soon as you possibly can. So I want to see if I could trade those two back to him for Tank. Demarcus Robinson and Tank Bigsby. I don't think there's any way in hell he does that trade, but I would at least try. I have Gibbs, Bijan, and Achane. Pick 2. Gibbs, Bijan, Achane. Gibbs and Bijan. I mean, you have to. I mean, God, that's so tough, man. How do you have such a loaded team? How do you have all three of those running backs? That's crazy. You obviously went running back right out of the gate, which is totally fine. It's just that, man, that makes your lineup decisions tough. But I'm gonna go Gibbs and Bijan. Especially with Achane being banged up on a short week, I think that makes the decision a little bit easier. And honestly, I think he has a chance of going off in tonight's game, but I still have to pick Gibbs and Bijan in this situation. ESPN rank. I know. And that's the thing is, like, that's why it's so important to draft on Underdog in the offseason, because when you come around to your ESPN drafts, like, you want to know, like, what the more accurate ADP is. And Underdog will show you that because there's so many better drafters on there. And you just notice the extreme discrepancy between Underdog ADP and ESPN ADP. Maybe I throw in Colby Parkinson since I have likely anyways to pick up Tank. I don't necessarily – that might be enough to kind of make the trade doable. What I would recommend is just go ahead and try it. And then if you have to throw in somebody besides Colby Parkinson, maybe somebody a little stronger, then go ahead and do it. I think the Tank Dell is a great pickup, but don't give up too much. And don't be afraid to run it by me. You could always ask me a comment on my regular videos or this video when you go back and just, ask, before accepting a trade. God, Achane going in the 6th round. That's absolutely crazy. FBU, start one quarterback, standard league, Mayfield or Stafford or Goff. Man, that's tough. Let's see. Going up against Tampa. I'm going to start Goff going up against Tampa. I like Goff out of the 3. What about Likely for Tank Dell, and I keep Colby for the season? Dude, if you could trade Likely for Tank Dell, you need to do that immediately, bro. I mean, that's an absolute smash, and you probably can. Going off that week 1 hype, people are very reactionary to week 1. You could probably sell the Isaiah Likely hype right now and get Tank Dell. You have Mike Evans. That would be a you have Mike Evans. I understand you have Mike Evans, and stacking is important to a degree, but I am going to go ahead and be on the side of just let's go ahead and start Let's go ahead and start Goff in this game. Yeah, let's go ahead and start Jared Goff. And Mike Evans is like, whether Baker produces a great game or not, Mike Evans can still go off without Baker having a very big game. You know, Baker's the kind of quarterback that could support wide receiver ones without his actual fantasy statistics being that good. I don't want to overrate Baker Mayfield after week 1, him having a big week. I still think that Goff is the more valuable quarterback, and I do like his matchup this week. So just likely for Dell and add someone else off the waivers that he wanted. Yeah, first of all, I would try to do that. If he does likely for Dell, absolutely do that. And then, yeah, try to snipe somebody else off the waiver wire. If you keep picking up guys off the waiver wire that he wants and he sees that those guys are going off, he'll even more want to trade you for him. So, yeah, pick someone else up off the waivers that he wanted and try to do the likely for Dell deal. Let me know. You can always come back in my live streams and my chats and my comments and let me know if you got the deal done. I like to know if these trades actually went through or not. Welcome in. We got some more of you filing in. Ask away fantasy football questions. If you didn't catch my wide receiver rankings, you can always scroll to the top of the chat. You can go all the way down and you can see my rankings 1 through 24 and who they're playing. And yeah, you can always watch the chat replay and the video replay to get my takes on all the players. But for this section of the video, I'm going to be answering all fantasy football questions about tonight's game and week 1 in general. All right, McLaughlin or Chase Brown or Justice Hill, free agents. McLaughlin, Chase Brown, McLaughlin. I was big on McLaughlin going into the season. This dude's yards per carry efficiency was freakishly good last year. It looks like he's going to be a huge part of this backfield. Now, I like Chase Brown as well. I'm not as big on Justice Hill, but I like Chase Brown as well. So it's a close call between those two, but I'm leaning Jaleel McLaughlin on this. Reason why I wanted Tank Dell is because my wide receivers are Olave, Devontae Smith, Ridley. Yeah, you need an upgrade at wide receiver, bro. Like, your wide receivers aren't that good, to be honest. Tank Dell would significantly improve your wide receiver room. But don't worry. I think Olave is going to bounce back at least a little bit. I'm not as big on him this year as other people are, but I think that he'll bounce back massively from what he did in week 1. So don't worry about that. But Tank Dell would make your wide receiver room way better. Yeah. So, yeah, go after him. Trade Likely. Trade the hype on Likely right now. I still think Likely is the guy now. I really do. I hate to base that off one game, but I do think Isaiah Likely is the tight end in the offense. And so you could really sell that hype right now. We got some more people filing on in. Love to see it. Love to see it. Ask away, everybody. All your fantasy football questions for tonight's game. For week 2, should I try to aim higher on wide receivers if I'm selling high? No, Tank Dell would do. Honestly, you'll be lucky if the guy does that. I mean, I don't know what kind of player this guy is, but you would actually be lucky to get that deal done. So I wouldn't try to get somebody better than Tank Dell. That's getting a little bit too optimistic in this exact spot. I would just, stick with the original trade. Fire away, everybody. As many fantasy football questions as you want. Answering all fantasy football questions regarding tonight's game and all of week 2. So just go ahead and ask away. And if you didn't catch the earlier part of the video, scroll to the top to see my wide receiver rankings. You can see that at the top of the chat. Blow up the chat, everybody. I want as many comments as possible. Start Waddle, Nico, or Jordan Mason in a PPR league. Man, Jordan Mason is approaching must-start consideration. I don't think that Waddle is necessarily a must-start over Jordan Mason, considering the fact that Jalen Waddle only had 5 targets last week. For a PPR league, it's going to be between Nico and Jordan Mason, and I am slightly leaning Nico Collins. But that's very, very close. And if you started Jordan Mason, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad decision. Between Nico and Jordan Mason, it is very, very close. I'm leaning Nico. Who to start in my flex? All right, FBU, who do you got for your flex? Let me know, and I'll let you know who to start. Blow up the chat, everybody. Would it be too much to do likely DeMarcus and Tank Bigsby for Tank Dell? Likely DeMarcus and Tank Bigsby. I would just try to do no, I like DeMarcus Robinson at this point with Puka Nacua being out. So, like, I don't want to give up that much. I think you should just try likely for Tank Dell straight up. If that doesn't work, get back to me and let me know, and then we'll try to add another piece. I have Neighbors, Cooper, Zeke. Well, you're pretty good. Neighbors, Amari. I'm going to be starting Amari Cooper here. I mean, look, Amari Cooper had 9 targets in week 1. If you look at these players, Amari Cooper should by far and away have a better season than any of the 3, and it's an okay matchup. I am going to go ahead and start Amari Cooper this week and look for him to have a bounce-back game. He's not facing as tough of a pass rush as he was in week 1, so look for him to bounce back and have a good week 2. I have Neighbors, Cooper, and Zeke, standard league. Oh, it's a standard league? I'm still starting Amari Cooper. Even if it's a standard league, I'm starting Amari Cooper over Neighbors and Ezekiel Elliott. I was bigger on him going into the season, and I'm still bigger on him now. I like him to have a bounce-back game in what could be a shootout game against Jacksonville. Welcome in, everybody. Scroll to the top of the chat if you haven't gotten my wide receiver rankings yet, and you'll see my top 24 plus the matchups. So go ahead and check that out. If you have any fantasy football questions regarding week 2 or just any of the week 2 matchups, go ahead and ask me in the chat. Blow up the chat. Ask as many questions as possible, and let's keep this rolling. My goal is to take y'all up to kickoff, or at least like somewhat close to it, but I definitely need the chat to be fed in order to continue doing the broadcast. Yeah, FBU, I got you, man. You can ask as many questions as you want. I am here to answer all your fantasy football questions for week 2. And super chats are always appreciated. They'll definitely jump you to the front of the line of questions, but I am doing my best to answer all questions regardless. So go ahead and ask away with your week 2 questions. If you're just new and you're just now tuning in, scroll to the very top to see my wide receiver rankings. They are in the top of the chat. Bryce, so CMC plays, would Mason make a good flex? Well, CMC is like extremely unlikely to play this week. I think that Jordan Mason could be an okay flex, but you probably have better options. They like CMC so much that if he gets put back on the field, yes, he'll be splitting opportunity share with Mason, but they like CMC way too much for him to not just get a significant workload the minute he steps back on the field. So I think you have a better option at flex if CMC is a go. Likely was gone. I grabbed Colby Parkinson. What do you think if I put Stafford in or Baker Mayfield Evans? I still think I'm still leaning Jared Goff. You were the one, you had Jared Goff, right? I'm still leaning Jared Goff. I like him in the matchup against Tampa Bay. It could be a shootout game. I like Jared Goff. Look for Amon-Ra to have a huge bounce back game. The offense is going to be even better with Jameson Williams. I mean, the upside for this offense this year is astronomically high. All right, we got Kells with a question. Godwin or Garrett Wilson? What's the better matchup play? I'm already starting Cooper Kupp and Nico in the flex. So you're starting Cooper Kupp and Nico. I'm still starting Garrett Wilson over Godwin. Everybody knows how big I am on Godwin this year. I love him to have a monster season. I love the fact that he moved back to the slot. But Garrett Wilson is going to be a freaking beast this year. I was huge on him going into the season. I even said to draft him over A.J. Brown. I'm big on Garrett Wilson. I think that he's going to have a very good connection with Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to go ahead and be plugging in Garrett Wilson over Chris Godwin. Blow up the chat, everybody. If you're just now tuning in, my wide receiver rankings are at the top of the chat if you want to catch those. If you're still in, don't be hesitant to ask questions. Ask as many questions as you want. I'm here to help you out. No such thing as too many questions. Ask away. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be live streaming a ton this year. I'm going to be doing this on Thursday nights, taking you up to at least somewhat close to game time. I'm going to be doing it every single Sunday morning. So if you want to catch my live streams this season, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Plus, every week I'm going to be doing other videos as well. FBU, what happened to Neighbors? What happened to Neighbors? They listed him questionable. That is a new occurrence. I don't know. I would have to check the report on that. I'm not 100% sure on Malik Neighbors being questionable at this very moment. Where it stands right now, that is a new designation, so I'm not 100% sure. Start sit questions, everybody, as many as you want, or any fantasy football question for that matter. Yeah, FBU, let me know on Malik Neighbors. Let me know what's going on so we can know here in the chat. I'm not 100% sure what's going on with Malik Neighbors right now. Chest issue. Huh. That's interesting, man. I don't know. That's absolutely. What's with all these chest injuries? Like that's the last injury you think of when you think of the NFL is like a chest injury, and here we are. Yeah, I knew what you meant, man. Interesting. All right, everybody. If you're new, if you're just now tuning into the live stream, my top 24 wide receiver rankings are at the top of the chat. If you scroll to the top of the chat, you can go through and see my top 24. Other than that, I'm answering all fantasy football questions regarding week 2 right now, starting with tonight's game. So if you have questions about tonight's game, start state questions, go ahead and ask me any questions you have about week 2 fantasy football. Don't be afraid to ask as many questions as you want, and I'll get back to you in the comments. Refer to the top of the chat for my top 24 wide receiver rankings for the week. Man, that Neighbors injury, that just came out of nowhere, man. Ask away, everybody. Blow up the chat. Ask as many fantasy football questions as you would like. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, I was looking for Neighbors to have a little bit of a bounce back week from week 1. Not that he really had a bad week 1. He was totally decent, but I think Neighbors could have had a pretty good week as well. But, like, is he for sure out for the week? I mean, he's questionable, but, like, he very well still might be playing. People pop up questionable all the time and still end up playing. So don't worry too much yet. He might still get out there and get on the field for you. Yeah, everybody loves playing against Washington. That's one of the worst defenses in the NFL, whether you're talking about run defense, pass defense. Their defense is absolutely terrible. They cannot defend the pass whatsoever. Do I like Trey Benson? I don't know, man. I think that James Conner is going to have a big season as long as he stays healthy. I think that Trey Benson will get involved at some point, but I think for him to really be cut loose, I think we need a James Conner injury, and obviously he's a very injury-prone back. So from that perspective, yes, I like Trey Benson because I think if he gets his opportunity share in the offense, he could explode given his explosiveness. But we have to have James Conner get hurt, I think, for that to happen. And as much as he's injury-prone and as much as it seems like James Conner gets hurt every year, it's still very hard to predict injuries. So as of this very moment, I don't like Trey Benson all that much. Yeah, I think we need to get lucky for him to end up going off. Welcome in, everybody. If you're just now tuning in to the video, you can scroll to the top of the chat to see my top 24 wide receiver rankings. And right now, Kel's 22. I think the Dolphins are winning tonight, bro. I'm going to say Dolphins in a pretty high-scoring game, 30-27. So I think the Dolphins are going to cover the spread. I think the spread's 1.5, so I think the Dolphins are going to cover. I don't know. It should be a close game, but I don't know. Buffalo doesn't quite have the defense that they used to have. I think this game's going to be a shootout, and I think a shootout favors the Miami Dolphins, given the fact that they have a significantly more talented wide receiving core. Yes, I think Hill will have a good night. I think Hill's going to have a good night every game, though. It doesn't matter the matchup. Going into any given night, I think Tyreek Hill's going to go off because he does it every week. So, yeah, I think Hill will have a good game. I mean, he had freaking 12 targets in week 1. The dude's been an absolute target monster since coming over to Miami. Back-to-back 1,700 receiving yard seasons. The dude's just an absolute beast. Welcome in, everybody. File on in. My top 24 rankings are at the top of the chat. Man, I think J-Mo is the new Nico Collins if he stays healthy. Man, that's bold. That's bold for sure. But if you look at it, it kind of makes sense. I mean, similar talent profile. They both have the combination of like size and speed and ability to get open downfield. And they're both in very, very explosive offenses. And like they're both, at the top of the depth chart as far as options. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Gibbs are going to get a lot of targets as well. But they're going to be feeding Jameson Williams, it looks like, based on week 1. So him being the new Nico Collins, it's certainly possible. That Miami running back situation is sus. Oh, I don't think it's sus. I think the Miami running back situation is actually pretty easy. Whoever's starting in the Miami backfield, you start them. Whether it be Devon Achane, whether it be Jalen Wright, whether it be Raheem Mostert, whether it be like whatever two are going to be getting the main workload for the game, I am going to be starting whoever is on the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, grab Jalen Wright. I can't talk. Grab Jalen Wright right now because the dude is going to be an absolute monster as long as Mostert is out. I mean, look what happened last year with the 1-2 punch with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. They both absolutely went off. Raheem Mostert was a running back to win all of fantasy. This was a very valuable backfield to have speedy running backs. Jalen Wright's got that speed and explosiveness, the creative play calling of Mike McDaniels. This is a smash play. You need to grab Jalen Wright right now. You're on to something, Kels. Blow up the chat, everybody. Ask away as many fantasy football questions as you want. Bro, I absolutely fleeced this guy today. Full PPR, got Rice for you got Rice for Debo? I'm not sure if you necessarily fleeced him, bro. I mean, like, being honest. I traded CMC last week for Hall 10. Oh, you got Rice and Jaden Reed. That's a little bit better. I traded CMC last week for Hall 10 minutes for the game started. Was that a good trade? You traded CMC last week for – yeah, I think that's a fine trade. In fact, like, when you look at Breece Hall, he's got the same upside as Christian McCaffrey. Now, right now, he's a very safe option. So I think that that's a good trade. I think you upgraded. You got a running back that's younger, that's more explosive despite popular belief, and he's going to be one of the top pass-catching running backs in the league. Last year, he led the league in receiving yardage for all running backs despite not getting cut loose until week 5. Breece Hall is an awesome fantasy asset, and at this point in time, he's a lot safer. I need help, bro. My starting receivers are Lamb, Rice, and Devontae Smith. Should I consider starting Dell this week? Lamb, you're definitely starting Lamb. You're definitely starting Rice. And you could certainly start Dell over Devontae Smith. It's very close between the two. let's see. Houston playing up against Chicago. I'm totally fine with starting Dell over Devontae Smith if you wanted to, but it's I don't know. Actually, you know what? Let's play it safe. Let's go ahead and start Devontae Smith. I'm sorry. Would you trade Goff and Stafford for Allen? I'm riding the Mayfield way. Oh my gosh. In like 2 seconds, bro. If you could trade Jared Goff and Matt Stafford for Josh Allen, go ahead and do it right this minute. Okay. Thoughts on Olave going into week 2 after only seeing 2 receptions in week 1? I think that Chris Olave bounces back in a major way, in comparison to what we saw. Now, from a season-long perspective, I'm not as big on Chris Olave as everybody else is. I think that he's a guy who is just playing in a very bad offense, despite the fact that they absolutely went nuclear in week 1. I don't like the Saints offense from a season-long perspective, and the target share was bad in game 1, so I don't like him on the season, didn't like him going into the season, but I think he bounces back in a major way from what we saw in week 1. There is no way in hell he continues to be that bad. Look for him to get 9 or 10 targets in a good, healthy amount of games this season. So Lamb, Rice, Dell is how you go. I'm going to go. I mean, it's so close, man, but God, it's so close between Devontae Smith and Dell. Wait, who's Philly playing again? Philly's playing Atlanta. Nah, I would start Devontae Smith, bro. Start Devontae Smith over Tank Dell for now until further notice. So Lamb, Rice, Devontae Smith. Yes, sir. I got you, bro. Glad to see you here. Flex Smith or Rice? Rice. I'm starting Rashee Rice over Devontae Smith. He's got an insane target share in his offense. He's going to be getting 9, 10 targets a game. And they're so dependent on Rashee Rice. He's the clear-cut wide receiver 1 in his offense, whereas Devontae Smith is still the 2. And I still like the Chiefs offense slightly better than I like the Eagles offense, although I love both offenses. I got Rice in the 6th. What a steal. Yeah, Rice in the 6th is absolutely a steal. 100%. Yeah, I was wondering, once we found out that, Marquise Brown was hurt, I was wondering why people weren't taking Rashee Rice a little bit earlier. Rice and Kupp are winning leagues for people that waited for his – 100%. Yeah. Yeah, especially Cooper Kupp. I mean, for the love of God, Cooper Kupp could end up being the wide receiver 1 by far. If this Puka Nacua injury lingers all season long, Cooper Kupp will be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He will be. We've seen this time and time again. When he's healthy 100%, he is the best wide receiver asset in fantasy football. And if Puka Nacua is out, there's just no doubt about it. London might be my second biggest regret this year. Picking him, yeah, London in round 2 was an absolutely it was not a good pick. I was trying to get people to avoid Drake London all off season, and I'm still not big on him. How will James Cook look tonight versus the Dolphins? I'm not that big of a James Cook guy. I don't really think that he has the shiftiness, the size, or the power to really be an elite running back. What saves you with James Cook is he does get some involvement in the passing game. So I think he's going to have an okay start, but I'm not necessarily excited to start him in tonight's game, even though I think it'll be a shootout. Are you staying on till kickoff? Got some questions. Yeah, Andre, I don't know that I'm going to necessarily stay on all the way until kickoff. I'm going to get as close to kickoff as possible, but I'm probably going to eat some dinner and everything before the game. So I don't know that I'm going to go all the way up to kickoff, but I'm going to get y'all as close as possible. Flex Kels 22. You got to start doing a sleeper defense of the week session. Yeah, I really do need to do a sleeper defense session because I always recommend streaming a defense. I mean, it's just one of those things where I feel like playing the matchup is more important at the defensive position. And we saw that this past week with the Jets. The Jets were one of the most drafted defenses in fantasy. And what happens? They come out against the 49ers and they get you a negative amount of points. You don't want to play elite defense against good offenses in fantasy. You want to stream the matchup. So considering the fact that you want to stream the matchup, I should start doing a sleeper defensive section. It's a very good idea, Kels. Flex Mason, Brian Thomas Jr., Coleman, or Godwin? I'm not considering Coleman over Godwin. No way in hell. I'm not considering Brian Thomas Jr. It's between it's between Mason and Godwin. And I am going to be leaning Jordan Mason as long as Christian McCaffrey's not on the field, obviously. So many leagues, it's hard to keep up. Yeah, man, don't worry about it. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. I try to get around to everybody, so that's what I'm doing. I appreciate y'all's input and ideas on like what kind of videos I should do as well. That's always much appreciated because I like to get you guys' feedback. Blow up the comment section, everybody. Ask away. What's a wide receiver I should go grab if I were to trade Olave and package a deal? Well, you definitely want to be buying low, right? So, let's see. Olave, you want to upgrade as far as draft value, maybe somebody that busted in week one. The perfect candidate is Marvin Harrison Jr., but you're obviously going to have to give up something big with Olave because Olave had a horrible week one as well. But you could probably buy low on Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. So package Olave with a decent running back for somebody who needs running backs and try to go after Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm still trying to sell White, but my depth is so bad now with the Puka injury. Well, I mean, you might need to keep your depth. Sometimes, like, you have to take your medicine and just keep your depth, even though it doesn't look as sexy as, a really good starting lineup. You still have to keep your depth sometimes. Depth is everything in fantasy. Who can I get in return for Christian Kirk? Maybe a defense, bro. I don't know, bro. I wasn't big on Kirk going into the season. I think a lot of people weren't, and they're definitely not high on him now. So maybe go after a kicker. I don't know. You really regret not drafting a QB higher? Yeah, nowadays I always recommend for people to draft quarterbacks in the middle rounds. I think that the thought of like waiting super late on a quarterback is a little bit outdated, given the fact that we have these quarterbacks with such extreme rushing upside that make massive differences in fantasy, like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. I think it's better to draft quarterbacks in like round 4 or 5 nowadays. Playing people that have JD5, Hurts, and Allen probably ends up costing me. Yeah, but at the same time, bro, you can always make up for it at other positions. I mean, you waited on quarterback for a reason. You waited on quarterback so you can be strong at your other positions. So I wouldn't worry about it, man. You can still use your other positions to beat these guys. Quarterback, at the end of the day, is not the most important position in fantasy. Running backs and wide receivers still matter more. This dude could throw for 300 yards, but yeah. Sell or hold Xavier Worthy? I don't know. It's tough. Like most analysts would tell you to sell him because he's coming off a huge performance. Marquise Brown's going to be coming back and taking some of his target share. He only had 3 targets in game 1. So like all signs are pointing towards selling him. I'm of the opposite opinion. I think that Xavier Worthy has such extreme upside being in this offense, given his inherent ceiling due to his downfield speed with Patrick Mahomes throwing on the ball. He just has way too high of a weekly ceiling for me to get rid of him. If they start targeting him more, and all he needs is 5-6 targets a game, bro, to be an elite fantasy asset. So I'm not getting rid of him. I'm going to hold him. I just feel like Mahomes is going to continue to find him. Yeah, I do too. I really do. I think they're going to keep connecting. I think that connection is going to be there all season long. For anybody just now tuning in, we are answering all fantasy football questions. Scroll to the top to see my wide receiver rankings for the week. Dude, Kamara might be in for a crazy year. Yeah, somebody was in here the other day, and they asked me to give them a bold take, and I told them my bold take was Alvin Kamara being a top 5 running back on the season because this dude's going to see so many targets out of the backfield, and he just dominated just on rushing efficiency alone in this last game. So, look for him to explode this year. If he can continue to rush the ball like that with his inherent ceiling due to his pass-catching upside, he could be a top 5 running back in fantasy. Just like I said, I predicted that going into the year, actually. In half PPR leagues, do you like have elite wide receivers or running backs more? That's a very good question. I think that the running back position is the slightly more valuable position in half PPR leagues. if you're playing 2 wide receivers, 2 flex. Now, if it's a 3 wide receiver league, then all of a sudden wide receiver becomes the significantly more important position. So it depends on your league formats. But for most half PPR leagues, say you're playing just 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, I prefer the running back position. If you're playing 3 wide receivers, I prefer the wide receiver position. 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, running back. Now, if it was full PPR, definitely receivers, but half PPR, running backs. Blow up the chat, everybody. Ask as much as you want. I got the Dolphins winning 30-27. I'm worried about Mark Andrews. I think that Isaiah Likely is the guy in the offense. Now, look, he's the younger, more explosive player. I think it was a matter of time before he took over the tight end 1 role in Baltimore. So I am worried about Andrews on the season. I'm worried about him this week. I'm worried about him every week. I didn't draft a whole lot of him on Underdog. In fact, I have almost no shares of him. And I don't feel good about him this week either. I really don't like him going forward. Yeah, but I'm not that big on Goddard either. I think what you should have done is either taken like Laporta or McBride over Mark Andrews. But, you know, a lot of analysts told you to draft Andrews going into the season, so a lot of people did it. I wasn't that big on him, but, you know, you never know. He could always bounce back. For sure. You need a big week from Ja'Marr Chase? We'll expect a big week from Ja'Marr Chase because they're playing Kansas City. This game could be a shootout now. It's early in the season. Both offenses looked a little bit underwhelming in week 1, but we know that Kansas City, Cincinnati games tend to be shootouts. It certainly could happen. This could be one of the more higher scoring games on the slate. And I like Ja'Marr Chase to have a big week too. McDuffie's underrated. Welcome in, guys. If you're new to the video, my top 24 wide receiver rankings are posted if you scroll to the top of the chat. My live streams aren't that big yet, so it won't take you too long to scroll to the top. 1 through 24 are listed on there with their matchups. And if you want to watch the replay of the live stream, I have all of my reasonings why I have the wide receivers where I have them. And right now, we are answering all fantasy football questions regarding tonight's game. I'm taking you at least somewhat close to kickoff, and we're answering all week 2 fantasy football questions. So blow up the chat, ask away. Don't be shy to ask as many questions as you want. Trade offer, Mixon and Moore, and I would send Mike Evans with Olave. Realistic or not? Okay, so you're offering Mixon and DJ Moore. So sorry. Okay, so you're getting Mixon and DJ Moore, and you're sending Mike Evans and Chris Olave. I don't know that I necessarily like that trade. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know that I necessarily like that trade. I don't like DJ Moore from a season-long perspective. So I think you're losing at the wide receiver position with either wide receiver that you're considering, being the fact that Chris Olave is still by far and away the wide receiver 1 in his offense. And Mixon had a great week 1, but I don't think he's going to continue getting that kind of insane opportunity share. I mean, 30 carries in week 1 is a little bit fluky to me. I don't think he has as big of a game most weeks. I actually don't like that trade. So whether it's realistic or not, I don't think you should do it. Welcome in, everybody. Ask away in the comment section. Yeah, Anthony, I got you, man. I'm here to answer your questions, so ask as many as you want. And I always do my best to get back to everybody. Peep my comment. 10-man leagues are so wild. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 10-man leagues are wild. Oh, you're saying hell no to the Mike Evans trade? Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that trade. Yeah, Moore is like, he's just in too crowded of a wide receiver room. I mean, DJ Moore's only had one really good fantasy season, and it's when he was the focal point of the offense, and he had a legitimate enough quarterback throwing him the ball in Justin Fields, who can produce for a wide receiver one. Barely scrape 1,000 yards this year. I think that's about accurate. I think he's going to barely scrape 1,000 yards. DJ Moore is not a guy who I really like this season. Keenan Allen out-targeted him in week 1. He could out-target him on the season. I don't think it's impossible for Keenan Allen to end the season with more targets than DJ Moore. It is Keenan Allen after all. The dude is going to siphon targets from whoever he goes to. If he goes to any team, he's going to be siphoning a significant target share away from whatever wide receivers are there. So that's a big reason why I don't like DJ Moore. Parkinson or Taysom this week? I'm gonna go with Parkinson. He's safer. Taysom Hill's such a wild card, man. Welcome in. We got some more people rolling in. Appreciate y'all tuning into the video. Make sure to like the video. Ask away in the comments. Ask as many questions as you want. If you want my wide receiver rankings, they are at the top of the chat. This week, LOL. Oh, you got that. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't like predicting touchdowns because they're just too volatile. But I think the CeeDee Lamb does have a bounce-back game. I think that the targets were there in week 1. I think the targets are going to continue to be there. Look for this guy to get 10-plus targets every single game. And just based on the target share alone, the talent being and what's projected to be a top 7 overall offense, I like CeeDee Lamb to have a massive bounce-back in week 2. Do you wish they kept Pollard? Yes, I do wish we kept Pollard. I think we jumped ship on him a little bit too early. He obviously didn't look nearly as explosive last year, coming back from the broken leg, but that's why he wasn't as explosive. It typically takes players 2 years to recover from these sorts of injuries. So I wish we would have given him another chance this season. I think the offense would have been a lot more elite. But at the end of the day, Jerry Jones does not know what he's doing. We had all kinds of running backs that we could have taken up in the free agent market. It was one of the best free agent markets of all time at the running back position. And we got freaking Ezekiel Elliott, who's old and washed up. Need to, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, McConkey, Neighbors, A.D. Mitchell, full PPR. I'm definitely starting Amari Cooper here, and I'm going to be starting Ladd McConkey as well. Amari Cooper and Ladd McConkey. Good to see you, Dirk. Appreciate you tuning in. I am certainly going with Cooper and McConkey here. I think Cooper has a bounce-back week. He looked very promising in week 1. Ladd McConkey. Oh, Tony Pollard. Remember, Pollard was a second-rounder last year. Yeah, and he very well should have been. I mean, if you look at the talent and the offense that he was going in, he was supposed to have a monster season. But it's fantasy football. At the end of the day, not everything works out exactly the way you expect. So it was just one of those seasons for Tony Pollard that things just didn't really work out. It was very much because of coming back from the leg injury. Odds are we see some more explosive plays from him this year, even in a bad offense. Yeah, Dirk, I got you, bro. Andre, tight end rankings. I don't have my tight end rankings for the week done yet, but I am going to be posting those on my Patreon. If you ever wanted to go over to my Patreon, I could give you the link, and I'm going to be posting rankings for every single position on my Patreon. As far as what I do in videos, I do my best to do wide receivers and running backs on a weekly basis. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Ask away. Blow up the comment section. Ask as many questions as you want. You think Keon Coleman scores tonight? It's tough predicting touchdowns, man, but hey, I think he is going to be the main target hog in the offense. So, yeah, I mean, the majority of targets are going to be going his way. I think Dalton Kincaid scores a touchdown tonight. So if you got any bets on touchdowns, bet on Dalton Kincaid to get in the end zone. I think he has a big-time bounce-back game tonight. He better have a bounce-back game. I'm playing him in my biggest money league. For the love of God, do better. Yes, big bounce-back for him. I agree with you. I agree 100%. He was a buy low for me this past week. Yeah. So were you able to get him in the trade market? I hope some people got rid of him. I'm sure they did. People were selling him for a ham sandwich. Dude, some people were selling Marv for. Why is this comment not popping up? Oh, yeah. So people were selling Marv for ridiculous offers. Yeah, people are extremely reactionary to week one. And it blows my mind because, like, if you look at all these wide receivers that have come in the league, it took them some time to get going. I mean, Jamar Chase boomed right out of the gate, but Justin Jefferson didn't absolutely go off in his first game. It took him like 7 or 8 games to really find his stride. And then he started exploding. And he wasn't even as big of a prospect as Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better prospect than any of those guys. I'm not saying he's going to be a better NFL player. He might not be, but the dude's an incredible prospect, and people are jumping ship on him after week 1. He might not get going until week 6 or 7, but he's still going to end up going off at some point. He's a great dynasty buy low right now for idiots that are selling him. MHJ is awesome for dynasty. McBride, big game this week, I think. I think McBride is like one of my top tight ends rest of season. I mean, the target share was there in a game where otherwise pass catchers weren't getting targeted. So for McBride to come out and have 9 targets and lead the team in overall target share is a very good sign. Yeah, Dynasty definitely takes some practice. It's such a different game, but it's so fun. I'm trying to sell JT. Nobody's budging. Yeah, it's not a good time to sell JT, bro. I mean, he's coming off a bad game. We want to be selling high on these guys. I mean, this is a guy who had a bad week 1, so people are reactionary to week 1, bro. It's so hard to sell a player coming off of a bad week 1 because people think that that's what's going to happen the entire season. So I think JT is better as a hold right now and not a sell. Dynasty is a different level. Yeah, Dynasty is a different level, man. Takes a lot more management, you know. Man, we are getting somewhat close to kickoff. I like this. I want to keep the live stream going. Might not do it too much longer, but I'm going to be here for a little bit. So keep asking away with y'all's fantasy football questions. And if you are just now tuning into the live stream, my top 24 wide receiver rankings for the week are at the top of the chat if you scroll to the top of the chat. Eagles or Falcons? Eagles by a mile. I think they're going to absolutely smash the Falcons to pieces. We got some more of y'all filing on in. Good to see. Ask away as many fantasy football questions as you would like. If you want my top 24 rankings, they are at the top of the chat if you want to scroll up there and see them. Feeling really good about my 16-team league. Good to know. I have both Rice and Worthy starting. Should I try to move Worthy? Yeah, I would. I mean, Rashee Rice is the clear target hog in this offense, and we have, we have Marquise Brown coming back soon. So while I do like Xavier Worthy rest of season, I think that, like, if you can get something really, really good for him, I would trade him. But again, like I was saying earlier, I like him better as a hold right now because I like him rest of season. But if you can get something really good for him, then go ahead and do it. Who are some receivers you trade Worthy for? Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is such a good buy low that I feel like every time somebody asks me a wide receiver question on who you should buy low on and who you should trade who for who, I just feel like I keep saying Marvin Harrison Jr. every time, but he's just such an incredible buy low right now. And if somebody is stupid enough to sell Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, that's a big-time reach, but you never know. Pick up Spears or Bucky Irving. I would pick up Bucky Irving. I think that Bucky Irving looked efficient. I think that he could end up taking significant workload away from Rachaad White. So I'm going to be picking up Bucky Irving. Yeah, the fact that people are panicking on St. Brown is crazy. He was the wide receiver 3 last season. The wide receiver 3. It's crazy. They played a team that clearly couldn't stop the run. Yep. Amon-Ra St. Brown's Opportunity share just wasn't the same as it normally is. They weren't connecting. I wouldn't worry about it. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to go off all season long. I think the Lions go all the way this year. That's my early pick. That's a good pick, man. They're definitely one of the Super Bowl favorites. I could see them winning the Super Bowl for sure. I mean, I don't want to say easily, but I could definitely see them, easily making a deep run. Eagles are up there too. Eagles are good on both sides of the ball, man. I like the Eagles. We got some more y'all filing on in. Go ahead and ask as many questions as you want to in the chat. I'm here to help you guys out. And if you want my top 24 rankings, they're at the top of the chat. So scroll to the top of the chat and you can get my top 24 rankings for week 2. Ask any questions you want about tonight's game. Yeah, bro, did I tell you about the offer I got for CMC? No, you did not. He wanted Kupp and Ford for CMC. Wow. Bro, I don't think Cooper Kupp's tradable right now. We don't even know if CMC is going to be healthy this season. I mean, it's so crazy going into the year that, like, if you said trade Kupp for CMC straight up, everybody would say, obviously do it. Take Christian McCaffrey. But, like, Cooper Kupp is so valuable right now. As long as Puka Nacua is out and as long as Christian McCaffrey, we don't even know if he's going to be able to stay on the field. I mean, he's dealing with tendonitis in his calf. That's stuff that tends to linger, man. Those are injuries that tend to linger, so I'm just not 100% sure. My running backs would be CMC and Bijan. I have Mason on my bench. That's the wild part, but Kupp can be the wide receiver. Yeah, Kupp could be the wide receiver one this year. It's tough, man. It's tough. I mean, right now, Cooper Kupp looks untradeable, so I wouldn't trade him for anything, to be honest with you. I mean, I would have to get something insane for Cooper Kupp, like CMC and another receiver. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even think I'd trade him for that. I don't think I'm trading Cooper Kupp right now. Welcome in, everybody. We got some more of you filing on in. Go ahead and blow up the comment section. Ask as many comments as you want. And ask questions about today's game, week 2, whatever you guys want. If you want my wide receiver rankings, they're at the top of the list. All right, y'all. I'm going to be getting on out of here. I appreciate those of you who came in for the live stream. I hope the running back rankings helped you guys. I hope the wide receiver rankings helped you guys out. And I will catch y'all. And I hope that I was able to answer all of your questions as well. If I didn't answer one of your questions and you had a question for me, just drop it in the comment section of one of my videos, and I'll get back to you on that. Okay, catch y'all later.